The next call is a split call between Labor and the Greens. Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I, like many speakers in this debate, would like to begin by paying tribute to the men and women who serve in our Defence Forces. I'm sure that despite the passionate debate from around the House tonight, all of us as a collective have much respect for our Navy, Air Force and Army. Mr Speaker, our Defence Force personnel, when they are acting on our behalf, both at home and abroad, very much exceed their expectations from some of our allies especially when they are overseas. Mr Speaker, I'm a bit disappointed that this is only a 5-minute call, because after the last contribution from the National Party, and the fact that we should just throw this thing away and not worry about the details of it, I really am aghast at that. And to claim that on this side of the House that we've been caught out, getting stuck in the weeds and the detail of the Defence Amendment Bill, really at home will wake people up at quarter tonight, Mr Speaker, because it's not us that's been caught out when we're debating the Defence Amendment Bill. It's actually the government, because while they're looking at what we call capability management, I think it's actually capability mismanagement. Because what is this bill about? And I'll answer the question of the member for Otago, Jackie Dean. What is this? I'm sorry for Waitaki. My apologies. I withdraw and apologise. We don't want to get caught in the details, but for the member for Waitaki, what does this bill do? And Mr Speaker, in the explanatory note, it says that capability management, one of the things that this bill sets out to achieve, is changing the way in which the Secretary of Defence and the Chief of Defence Force work together regarding the procurement, replacement, repair and disposal of defence assets. Now, best case scenario on that side of the House, they may be spinning that as efficiencies or savings, but as many speakers on this side of the House have said, this is not about efficiencies and savings. This is purely about cuts and more cuts, because as we've heard, and again getting stuck in the detail, Mr Speaker, the Defence Force has been asked to find $350 million of efficiencies annually, of savings annually, or cuts annually, to make sure it can meet the targets that have been set by this government. And Mr Speaker, no one is safe in the Defence Force. Not even our proud members of the Defence Force bands are safe, as we've heard time and time again from a number of speakers. 7 of the 10 bands that play for us at a number of public occasions are set for the chop, saving the taxpayer a whopping amount of $900,000, roughly about the size of the price of a swimming pool in Tokyo. And can I go back to that figure of $350 million a year of savings, because it also is roughly around about the size of the reported efficiencies that the police are supposed to be looking for in the latest reports of a proposal that is before the government at the moment, and that will seriously affect the police. And the changes that we are looking at here will seriously affect the frontline capabilities of the Defence Force. And Mr Speaker, cuts and more cuts, and what will this do to the credibility and the reputation of our Defence Force staff? Mr Speaker, I spoke earlier on in my contribution about the high regard in which they are held in. Mr Speaker, if we are going to look seriously at major cuts to the Defence Force budget, our ability to act in a way that we have and our proud reputation overseas will be seriously affected, Mr Speaker. And as my colleague Ian Lees-Galloway has said, the cuts that are happening already in the Defence Force are starting to have a serious effect on morale within our troops, excuse the pun, Mr Speaker, because the New Zealand Defence Force Outgoing Attitude Survey completed last year did show that our Defence Force morale has fallen to its lowest point in 8 years, and the number of people wanting to leave the military is higher than it was 2 years ago. And that leads me to a point of how do we actually attract our young Kiwis to serve in the Defence Force at a time of pretty high unemployment. You know, you think that the Defence Force might be a career option for many of our youngsters who cannot find work or training. I think it's 64,000 of them at the moment, a very large number. And at the moment, you'd think that the Defence Force might be one of the ways that they could do something meaningful. But, Mr Speaker, when you're making cuts of this nature, it's not going to be very easy to attract younger people to the Defence Force. Mr Speaker, we will be recommending that this goes to the Select Committee, but there are a number of issues that we have pointed out that are worthy of debate, are worthy of seeing what the public has said, and we commend this to the next
Sorry
stage.
to interrupt the honourable member. Call Gareth Hughes.
Mr Speaker, ngā mihi nui kia koutou.